I've watched many different hardcore Minecraft series over the years, and every single one of them has one thing in common. They're all exactly the same. Now, you're probably thinking, wow, that statement was cruel and contributes nothing to the overall plot of the video. Anyway, today we build the Church of Hardcore Minecraft. Let's get started. Since there happens to be a mangrove swamp right by my village, I will be utilizing mangrove wood for today's build. I head to the stables and grab my horse, but I end up needing to cross an ocean to get there, so I put the horse back in the stables and craft a boat. What a classic waste of 5 minutes. I decide to build a temporary shelter, as this village is unfortunately not socialist and I can't just live off the government for the rest of my life. I build a small shack out of acacia wood and use some cobblestone and pumpkins for the ceiling. It might not be the most aesthetically pleasing build, but in the words of Travis Scott after he found out he couldn't fit more people into the Astroworld concert, it is what it is. Anyway, I finally head over to the mangrove swamp to gather wood for the build. Honestly, if I had known that the wood was red beforehand, I probably wouldn't have committed to building with it, but given all the systemic woodism happening these days, I can't change my mind now. It is now night, so of course I am relentlessly pursued by mobs. Honestly, this is pretty ridiculous. If I was interested, I would have already said so. These guys just do not get the hint. As I'm fighting a group of spiders, I spot some green police officers in the distance. They tell me they just want to talk, but I've fallen for that trick before, so I attack one and they both explode. I'm not saying we should defund the police, but we should at least defuse them. Unfortunately, this incident gives me a 3-star wanted level and they start to spawn all over the place. Luckily, I was a ninja back in college, so I used those skills to take one of them out without it exploding. I then hit a second one into a hole that was not as deep as I thought it was, and it proceeds to climb out and explode in my face. I then spot a couple of zombies in my peripheral vision and decide to climb a tree to avoid them. This was a great plan, except for the fact that zombies can climb trees, so actually this plan was pretty terrible. After killing the zombies, I notice a creeper bobbing his head up and down to the tune of Gangsta's Paradise, which I would play if YouTube didn't copyright strike my 2-second clip of the song. I understand their point of view, but as an American, I don't respect it. Anyway, my only job here was to mine enough wood for the entire build, but given that I only have 10 pieces in my inventory, I am being about as efficient as a minimum wage worker. In other words, I am not being very efficient. I spend the rest of the night and early morning mining wood, as you can see in this time-lapse edit that took me a really long time to make, overlaid with overly enthusiastic music. Now that I have the wood I need, I decide to head back to the village. I spot a giant stone pillar that I'm sure some group of natives has devoted at least 2,000 years to at some point in history. Honestly, there probably aren't too many rocks that haven't been worshipped at some point, so this is not that big of a discovery. I finally arrive back at the village, where all the villagers greet me with cries such as hip hip hooray and go back to Mexico. Actually, it was just the second one. I made the first one up so I didn't seem like a complete reject. It's time to actually start the build, so I clear out a large area where the church will eventually be. However, I get carried away and end up cutting down a lot more trees than I needed to. This forest is starting to look like the Amazon rainforest, except with more trees, which doesn't say much for the Amazon rainforest. The next morning, I clear away all of the tall grass in the area. However, you will just have to deal with normal footage of this event, as it took an hour to edit the 2-second clip of myself cutting down the Amazon rainforest, and I'm not willing to do that again. Give me a break though, I am literally editing this video on my school Chromebook. After I finish mowing the lawn, I lay the foundation for the building with some mangrove wood planks. If I'm being completely honest, the wood is extremely ugly, but I spent a good half hour collecting it, so at this point I'm just going to have to deal with it. At least I get to practice my speed bridging skills that are only rivaled by Dream himself, also a lot of other people. Once the outline of the build is done, I decide to fill in the back wall, as well as add a little more decorative framework to the front where the doors will be. I then realize that I will need some glass for windows, but it's already night, so I beat up a couple homeless people and go to bed. I start the next morning with the classic pull the fire alarm in the movie theater maneuver by ringing the bell to make all of the villagers panic. Unfortunately, once they figure out that it was just a silly prank, they are understandably angry and I promptly leave the area. I head over to the nearby desert to mine sand for glass, but I spot a turtle stranded on the beach and proceed to calmly try to help it back into the ocean. However, like most things, I give up after about 2 seconds and go on with my day. If you really think about it, the only thing you can use sand for is to make glass and suffocate other players. They say that digging up sand is dangerous because it can collapse around you, but I've never actually seen someone that has been buried by sand, so I'm pretty sure that this isn't true. Anyway, I finish collecting the sand and head back to my temporary shelter to smelt it. I make a pit stop to mine some coal and stone because up until now I had not gathered these items, and I don't think prayer and herbal remedies will do the trick. I head back up to the surface and start smelting the sand. Unfortunately, there isn't a special kind of furnace to make the sand smelt faster, so this is going to take about as long as Tom Brady kisses his kids. Meanwhile, I start the next morning by killing a walking bomb and then placing dirt paths throughout the church. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, why is dirt any better to walk on than grass? Anyway, I craft some stairs to start placing around the rim of the building for the roof. I then use the remaining stairs to make a ton of chairs for all the people that will probably not attend my church. I feel like a divorced mom who has gotten so used to setting the table for her family that she just keeps doing it when they are gone. This can also be applied to a divorced dad or transvestite. I don't want to be claustrophobic. At this point, all of the sand that I put in the furnace earlier has been converted to glass, so I take it over to the building and start placing the windows. It's almost nighttime, but I'm hoping that the fact that I am in a church will scare most of the zombies off. Instead, they act like Deshaun Watson in a massage parlor, and I'm assaulted multiple times before I decide to just give up and go to sleep. The next day, I decide to craft a few paintings to place on the back wall of the church. Unfortunately, they don't have any nude portraits of Andrew Tate, so I am forced to settle for a painting of Queen Elizabeth with her beloved pig DeMarcus. Honestly, I'm not really that upset, this is absolutely gorgeous. I then walk back to the house and proceed to poison myself by eating a spider eye. I wasn't starving and had other food choices available, I just made a strange choice, much like the decision to make Caillou bald in pretty much every authentic Asian dish ever. I need a lectern for the church, so I grab some sugarcane to make paper for a book. I then realized that I actually need an entire bookshelf to craft a lectern, which is actually really annoying because it took me a while to find enough sugarcane for one book. However, instead of mining a bookshelf from the village, I choose to spend another 5 minutes searching for more sugarcane to craft the books with. I'm not being stubborn, I'm just a dumb motherfucker. Anyway, I finally craft and place the lectern at the front of the room. It looks pretty underwhelming if you ask me, but in the words of Dream after he got caught cheating on a video that already had 10 million views, it is what it is. I climb on top of a villager to watch him sleep. I slowly nudge him out of the bed, but he wakes up before I can push him completely into the wall behind him. He then proceeds to do the exact same thing to me, but of course it doesn't work because I have plot armor. I'm going to need a lot of stone to complete the build, so I need to make an iron pick. I use a door to breathe underwater while I mine iron. You're probably thinking, wait, you've been playing on this world for a pretty long time now, why don't you have iron? The answer is that even though I have been on this world for a pretty long time, I have done absolutely nothing useful, much like Kim Kardashian. Call me racist, but it's the truth. Anyway, I smelt the iron and craft a couple of items, and now I'm ready to strip mine for a while to get enough stone. After crafting the iron pick, the game gives me the "Isn't it iron pick" achievement, which I actually find hilarious, quirky, and funny. However, this is also how I felt about my Tinder date before I found out that he was a woman. Wow, what a plot twist within a plot twist. Subscribe for more plot twists. I spend the next couple of minutes looking for caves to mine in, but I quickly remember the one rule that every Minecraft player knows about mining: always dig straight down. I proceed to dig straight down, and I'm not going to say if this was successful or not, but compare the experience level I was at about 5 seconds ago with the level I'm at now, and you tell me. Since digging down was such a success a second ago, I continue to dig down. Apparently the Y level for diamonds is -35 now, so this takes me a minute. Once I finish, I sit back down at the keyboard and start strip mining. My fingers were tired from all the clicking, so I put a small weight on the mouse to keep left click down. Meanwhile, I uncover a geode containing enough crystal meth to give all of my villagers crippling drug addictions until Tom Brady retires. In other words, I pretty much have an unlimited source of crystal meth. Anyway, I continue strip mining, but unfortunately come across a cave pretty quickly. Rather than just turning around and mining in literally any other direction, I proceed to get distracted and start exploring. I am quickly surrounded by mobs, so I'll need to make a quick escape in order to get out of the cave alive. I proceed to not make a quick escape and get shot by a skeleton. Luckily, this happened pretty close to where I was strip mining, so I head back down and grab the items I lost. I am of course assaulted again, but this time I have the high ground and can easily take out my assailants. I may have died in my first attempt, but like everyone who has ever said the phrase, "I'm done arguing with you," I always come back for more. Even though I initially came down here only to strip mine and have already died once, I proceed to get distracted again by a patch of gold on a ledge. I then spot a patch of redstone and actually get to mine the whole thing before a suicide gremlin blows me up. These guys are about as annoying as pretty much everything Billie Eilish says. Actually, I take that back, that's an insult to the gremlin community. Once again, I find my way back to my stuff and actually end up coming across some diamonds. I must have already passed them like 3 times, but I hadn't noticed them until now. Anyway, instead of immediately putting them in a chest, I proceed to pick a fight with a massive group of mobs. My shield breaks and I am forced to retreat, which is probably a good thing because I most likely would have ended up dead. However, I still don't bring the diamonds to the surface and continue to mine other ores. I finally head back to the surface where it is currently dawn and mobs have begun to despawn. I notice an iron golem looking more cracked than a Clash Royale player's iPhone, so I donate my last iron ingot to keep him alive for another day. The kinder thing would have been to just let him die, but I need him to kill more mobs for me, so yeah, he's just gonna have to continue suffering. I head over to the church to start placing the stone that took way too much time and death to obtain. I quickly run out of blocks, so evidently I'm going to have to go through the same process all over again to get more. Before I do this, I actually find kind of a neat use for some of the crystal meth blocks that I found in the geode. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, don't waste the crystal meth, but trust me, it'll definitely keep people coming to the church. Before I go back into the mine, I craft a couple of golden pickaxes to make the job easier. Gold is about as useful as a turn signal on a BMW, so I wasn't really going to do much else with it anyways. I strip mine for about 5 seconds and then my pick breaks. I never realized how little durability these guys had. They need some Energizer AA batteries or something, because this is pretty much unbearable. I use 2 picks and literally get just 1 stack of blocks. Nevertheless, it should at least be enough to finish the stone part of the build. I come back up to the surface and once again I run out of blocks. Luckily enough, I actually ended up having the exact amount that I needed. This is as exciting as the time I asked a woman for her number and she actually said yes. The number she gave me ended up being the number for the suicide hotline, but I was excited at the time. The church is starting to take form, but I still have a lot of work to do on the back half. I'll need some more mangrove wood for this part of the build, so I start making my way towards the mangrove swamp. I decide to pick a fight with an iron golem, which in hindsight was probably not the smartest decision as the villagers decide to cancel me on Twitter. My plans then get derailed for about another 5 minutes as I continually attack and get killed by the iron golem. This would probably be a fairer fight if I wasn't able to respawn, but in the words of the famous YouTuber Dream, cheat until you get caught and then cheat again. Now, you're probably thinking, wait, he already talked about Dream, what an unoriginal joke. Anyway, the next day I finally get to mining the mangrove wood, which I will show in another awesome montage overlaid with enthusiastic music. On my way back from gathering wood, I come across a vein of iron. I mine this for some reason, and by the time I get back to the church, it's already pretty much night. I decide to take the risk and continue working, which would have ended up fine if I didn't intentionally anger an enderman about 5 seconds later. Combined with the force of a giant tarantula, the enderman quickly climbs up the staircase I had built for myself and kills me. This is borderline a hate crime because I was wearing sunglasses when he committed this act. The next day I grab my stuff again and continue working on the roof. I section off a little square to make a tower-like structure at the top. It won't have any use, but it'll hopefully look cool. I unfortunately fall down the giant hole in the center of it and die. I wish this was more like real life, because a fall from that height in real life would have been harmless. At least, I think so. I've never actually talked to someone that has fallen from that height. Anyway, on my way back I get to see the church from a distance, and I have to say, it's looking average at best. This is better than I expected, but less than I hoped for. I end up making the pillar a little bit taller, because right now it looks more like a micro pillar, and much like Spider-Man's bulge, I need it to be the most noticeable thing the villagers see all day. I finally finish the roof as night begins, which is pretty exciting, so I try to continue the streak of accomplishment by attempting a boat clutch off of it. This is about as successful as Morbius, so the streak ends at 1. The next day, I decide to replace some of the sides of the pillar with glass. This is the last part of the build, so I stand back and take a look. I ask myself, if you weren't already told that this was a church, would you know that this is a church? The answer is it's all Donald Trump's fault. Next question. Although I finished the outside of the build, I'm still missing a crucial part of the church, a Bible. I craft a book and hunt down a squid for an ink sac. This is almost like the show Squid Game. At least I think so, I haven't actually seen it. I then proceed to kill a turtle and craft my book and quill. The turtle had nothing to do with the book, it just makes a cool sound when it gets whacked with an axe. I drop the book on the lectern and write out the 10 true commandments of Minecraft. Always mine at night, always dig straight down, and creepers are confused pigs. Anyway, here's a nice panoramic view of the entire church. It's not a huge view because it's not a huge church. You're probably thinking, wow, this church is mediocre at best, I wasted my time watching this video. While that may be true, say, wow, this church was absolutely amazing, best church I've ever seen, in the comments so more people are tricked into watching all the way through. And if you're someone that was tricked by the comments into watching the whole video, in the words of President Joe Biden, sometimes life can talk to you in the bathroom, but only when you bring a piece of cake.